this video, I just want to talk about my favorite tale from the Arabian Nights, which is the story of Abdullah of the land and Abdullah of the sea. In addition to the fact that this story is very deep, there is another reason for shedding light on it. A few months ago, I came across a video on YouTube in which a guy discussed why religious people who say they believe in God still cry and feel sad when they lose a loved one. Doesn't this reaction in a way implies a kind of atheistic feeling or something along with those lines? This story came to my mind because it, in one way or another, addresses this issue by illustrating various levels of faith. I believe that reading this story is not only entertaining but also educational. Knowing that I used John Penn's English translation in this presentation, I adhered to his exact translation on the slides. However, during my speech, I will edit his translation when the expressions are too hard or too archaic. The story is about a poor fisherman named Abdullah, meaning the servant of Allah, who had a wife and 9 children. This poor Abdullah owned nothing but his net. Every day he used to go to the sea to fish, and he sold what he caught and spent its money on his family. One day his wife gave birth to another child, and it happened that in that day he had nothing at all. So his wife told him to go and bring her something to eat. So he took his net and went to the sea to fish in the name of this newborn child. However, when he cast his net in the name of the little child, he got nothing but sand and pebbles and weeds. He kept on trying until the end of the day, but caught nothing. Thus, broken-spirited, he decided to return home. On his way back home, and while he was thinking of what would he say to his wife and how should he feed his children, he came across a crowded baker's shop. The fisherman stood looking and snuffing the smell of the hot bread, and indeed his soul longed for it by reason of his hunger, till the baker caught sight of him and asked him whether he needed bread. And based on his silent reaction, the baker understood that the fisherman really needed bread, but he had no money. Therefore, the baker told him that he will give him bread where he can pay its price later when he will get money. The fisherman was happy, but he told the baker that he will leave his net in pawn till the morrow. But the baker refused, saying that his net represent the only means of the fisherman's livelihood. Besides giving him bread, he also gave him money to buy meat for his family and told him to bring a fish tomorrow in exchange. After buying what he could of meat and vegetables, the fisherman returned to his family. The next day, the fisherman went again to the shore, praying to God to whiten his face with the baker. But when he threw his net to the sea, he got nothing. Thus he tried and tried until the day ended. Then he set out homeward in shameful concern. When he arrived to the baker's shop, he rushed his steps so that the baker would not see him. But during that, the baker saw him and called him, asking him to take his bread and his spending money, just like yesterday. The fisherman told him that he was ashamed to face him because he still wasn't able to catch no fish whatsoever. The baker told him not to feel ashamed and that someday the good luck will come where he will be able to pay his debts. Things happened in the same pattern for 40 days. Every morning the fisherman went to the sea and returning at nightfall without fish, and still he took bread and spending money from the baker and then went back home. On the 140th day, by the way, in some manuscripts, it was on the 40th day. However, on the 140th day, the fisherman was very desperate and he thought about tearing up the net and consequently quit his job. But his wife convinced him to keep his faith in God, who will not let his attempts go to waste. So he went out to the shore and threw his net, praying to God to provide him with at least one fish, so that he would be able to give it to the baker. And he cast his net into the sea, and pulling it in, found it heavy. After hard attempt, he got it ashore, but found in it a dead ass, swollen and stinking. Being very sad, he started thinking that there is no more provision for him in the sea, and that he must leave this craft. Then he removed to another place so he might be far from the terrible smell of the dead ass, and he cast his net there. He waited a while, then drove it in and found it heavy. He tried very hard in pulling the net until the blood streamed from the palms of his hands, and finally he managed to get it ashore. But to his surprise, he saw a man in the net and took him for one of the afrits of the Prophet Solomon, whom he used to imprison in his vessels of brass and cast into the sea, supposing that the vessel had burst for length of years and that the Afrit had come forth and fallen into the net. Therefore the fisherman fled from him. But the creature called out from within the net and told him that he was a human being like him. He explained that he needed the fisherman to set him free from the net, and in return, the fisherman would be repaid. The creature told the fisherman that he was a mortal and a believer in God and his apostle, and that he is of the children of the sea, and that he would be able to tear up the net, but given that he believes in God's commandments, he didn't want to do that. Instead, he wants the fisherman himself to set him free. Thus, he told the fisherman to set him free, and for doing that, he would make a covenant with him. According to that covenant, the fisherman will come to him every day in this place with a basket in which he will bring him fruits of the land, such as grapes and figs and melons and peaches and pomegranates and other fruits, while the merman would take the basket from him and fill it with coral and pearls and emeralds and rubies and other precious stones. Hence, they both accepted the agreement. This creature, who is a merman, told the fisherman, quote, "You are Abdullah of the land, and I am Abdullah of the sea. But abide here till I go and fetch you a present." End of quote. And the fisherman obeyed and waited, but meanwhile he regretted of having released him and said in himself, quote, "How know I that he will come back to me? Indeed, he beguiled me, so that I released him, and now he will laugh at me. Had I kept him, I might have made a show of him for the diversion of the people of the city, and taken money from all the folk, and entered with him the houses of the great." End of quote. But as he was thinking like this, the merman returned to him with his hands full of pearls and coral and other jewels, and said to him, quote, "Take these, O my brother, and excuse me, for I had no basket that I might fill it for you." End of quote. The fisherman rejoiced and took the jewels from the merman, who said to him, quote, "Come hither every day before sunrise." End of quote. And then he went down into the sea, while the fisherman headed rejoicing towards home. On his way, he passed by the baker's shop, and he went to him and told him, quote, "Oh, my brother, good luck has come to us at last. So do you reckon with me?" End of quote. But the baker answered as follows, quote, "There needs no reckoning. If you have anything, give it to me, and if not, take your bread and spending money and be gone." End of quote. The fisherman asserted to him that the good luck has already come to him, and given that he owed the baker a lot of money, he took up at a handful half of the pearls and coral and rubies and other jewels, and he handed it to the baker, saying, quote, "Give me some ready money to spend this day till I sell these jewels." End of quote. So the baker gave him all the money he had and all the bread in his shop. He greatly rejoiced in the jewels he had been given. The baker was so happy that he even left his bakery and followed the fisherman home to help him buy things for his family. He stayed at his house all day long. In short, they became best friends. However, the next morning, the fisherman rose before sunrise, shouldered a basket which he had filled overnight with all kinds of fruits, and went to the seashore. There he set down the basket and called out, saying, quote, "Where are you, O Abdullah, O Merman?" End of quote. Who answered him, saying, quote, here am I at your service. End of quote. And he came forth to him. The fisherman gave him the basket of fruits, and he took it and plunging into the sea with it, was absent a while, after which he came up with the basket full of all kinds of precious stones and jewels. The fisherman set it on his head and went away. When he arrived at the baker's shop, he gave him 3 handfuls of the jewels from the basket, and then going home, he set the basket down there. Then he took a jewel of a price of each sort of, and going to the jewel bazaar, he stopped at the jewelry shop and said to him, quote, "Buy these jewels of me." End of quote. After seeing them, the jeweler said, quote, "Do you have other than these?" End of quote. Abdullah the fisherman answered, quote, "Yes, I have a basket full at home." End of quote. Whereupon the jeweler took the jewels from him and said to his servant, quote, "Lay hold of him, for he is the thief who stole the queen's jewels." End of quote. And he ordered them to beat him. So after beating him and bounding his hands behind him, they carried him to the king. When they brought him in front of the king under that accusation, the king said to his eunuch, quote, "Carry these jewels to the queen and say to her, are these your jewels that you have lost?" End of quote. So the eunuch carried the jewels to the queen, who marveled at them and sent to the king to say, quote, "I have found my necklace in my own place, and these jewels are not my property. Nay, they are finer than those of my necklace." End of quote. When the eunuch returned and told the king what the queen said, the king cursed the jeweler and his company, who defended themselves by saying that they knew this man for a poor fisherman and deemed these jewels too much for him, so made sure that he had stolen them. So they went out in fright, and the king asked Abdullah, the fisherman, about how he came by these jewels, the likes of which the king had never seen. Abdullah answered that he has a basket full of them at home, and he told him of his friendship with the merman, who will continue on providing him with these jewels on a daily basis. The king told him that this is his lot, yet wealth needs to be protected. And in order that nobody will steal these jewels from the fisherman, the king will marry him to his daughter and make him his wazir and hand him down the kingdom after he dies, so none may oppress him after the king's death. Hence, Abdullah married the king's only daughter, and the dower was giving her all the precious stones and jewels in his possession, and he even brought his old family to live in the palace. The next morning, the king looked out of his window and saw Abdullah carrying a basket full of fruit on his head. He asked him about it, and Abdullah reminded him of his agreement with the merman to visit him daily. Abdullah said he would never break his promise, or else the merman might think that wealth had caused him to forget. The king was convinced and affirmed that Abdullah must indeed keep his word. At any rate, upon arriving at the seashore, he met his friend, the merman, to whom he delivered the basket of fruit, receiving jewels in return. On his way back home, as he passed by the baker's shop, he saw that it was closed. This went on for 10 days, during which the shop remained shut. Concerned for the baker, he inquired the neighboring shop and was told that the baker was ill. After learning his address, Abdullah went directly to his house. When he knocked on the door, the baker looked out of the window, and upon seeing his friend, the fisherman, with a full basket on his head, he came down and opened the door. Abdullah entered, embraced the baker, and wept. He told him that he had passed by his shop for many days, but it had always been closed, and he had been told that the baker was sick. The baker then replied, quote, "Nothing ails me, but I was told that the king had taken you, for some folk had lied against you and accused you of being a thief. Therefore, I feared and shut my shop and hid myself." End of quote. After that, the fisherman told him that all is well and that the king has even made him marry his daughter and made him his wazir. At the end, he told him to take the jewels from the basket without fearing anything. Afterwards, the fisherman returned with the empty basket to the king and told him that he had given all he got to his friend, the baker, to whom he owes kindness. And then he told him the entire story about his old poor days. At that moment, the king asked him about his friend's name, and he answered with the following, quote, "His name is Abdullah the baker, and my name is Abdullah of the land, and that of my friend the merman is Abdullah of the sea." The king rejoined and said, quote, "And my name also is Abdullah, and the servants of God are all brethren. So send and fetch your friend, the baker, that I may make him my wazir of the left." End of quote. Therefore, he sent for the baker, and the king made him wazir of the left, whereas making Abdullah of the land his wazir of the right. On this wise, the fisherman abode a whole year. It chanced one day that he carried the basket full of dry fruits to the seashore, according to custom, and his friend took them from him. Then they sat down to chat, the fisherman on the beach and the merman in the water near the shore, and they talked till their conversation fell upon the subject of tombs. Whereupon the merman asked Kot, "O my brother, they say that the Prophet, whom God bless and preserve, is buried with you on the land. Do you know his tomb?" End of quote. Abdullah of the land answered, quote, "Yes, it lies in a city called Yathrib." End of quote. The merman asked again, quote, "And do the people of the land visit it?" End of quote. The fisherman said, "Yes." The merman said, quote, "I give you joy, O people of the land, of visiting that noble and compassionate prophet, which whoso visits merits his intercession. Have you visited it, O my brother?" End of quote. The fisherman said, quote, "No, for I was poor and had not what to spend by the way, nor have I been at my ease but since I knew you, and you bestowed on me this good fortune. But I should visit it after I have made the pilgrimage to the holy house of God. But nothing withholds me of doing that but my love for you, for I cannot leave you for one day." End of quote. The merman expressed his surprise to the fisherman, who acted as if he loved him more than he loved the Prophet, who shall intercede for him on the day of appearance before God, and shall save him from the fire, and whose intercession to enter paradise is sought by all. The fisherman told him that the visitation to the tomb of the Prophet is more important to him than everything in this world, but he must at first gain permission from the merman, because they have already made a contract that they will meet on daily basis. The merman said, quote, "I grant you leave, but I have a trust to give you. So come with me into the sea, that I may carry you to my city and my house, and entertain you there, and give you a gift. And when you stand by the Prophet's tomb, you will lay it thereon, saying, O Apostle of God, Abdullah the merman salutes you and sends you this present, imploring your intercession to save him from the fire." End of quote. Hearing this, the fisherman told him that if he plunged into the water, it would enter his belly and choke him. But the merman told him that he has an ointment made from the liver fat of a certain type of fish, with which the fisherman could rub his whole body, and to solve the problem. This would create a kind of vacuum around him, preventing him from dying. After that, the merman disappeared into the sea with the basket. After a while, he returned with the ointment. He told the fisherman that this ointment was derived from the largest and most dangerous fish, which are creatures that the sea is full of. Hence, the fisherman expressed his fear lest if he goes down with the merman into the sea, one of these beasts would devour him. Would devour him. The merman said, quote, "Have no fear. When it sees you, it will know you for a son of Adam, and will fear you and flee. It fears none in the sea as it fears a son of Adam. For that, if it eats him, it dies at once, because his flesh is a deadly poison to this kind of creatures." End of quote. Moreover, he told him that they would never be able to take its liver fat save by means of a man, because when a human being is drowned in the sea and his shape and smell are changed after some time, this fish eats him, thinking him of the beast of the sea, and dies. Then the mermen find it dead and take the fat of its liver. In this way, the fisherman put off his clothes, buried them in a hole which he dug in the beach, after which he rubbed his body from the top to toe with the ointment. Then he descended into the water. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the water did him no hurt at all. The merman asked him, quote, "What do you see, O my brother?" End of quote. He answered, quote, "O my brother, I see that which is good, and indeed you spoke the truth in that which you said to me, for the water does me no hurt." End of quote. Quote the merman, quote, "Follow me." End of quote. So he followed him and saw many amazing things, including different kinds of fish. The fisherman said to the merman, quote, "O my brother, how is it that I see all the fish to which we draw near flee from us?" End of quote. The merman answered, quote, "Because they fear you, for all things that God had made fear the son of Adam." End of quote. He saw many strange things and many marvel cities. The fisherman was told that the people of the sea even have a sultan, and he saw that the folk of the sea, both males and females, have tails, but there was neither selling nor buying amongst them, as with the people of the land, nor were they clothed, but went all naked. More interestingly, the merman told the fisherman that the folk of the sea are not all of one religion. He said some of them are Muslims, others Jews, and others are Christians. Then they talked about their custom of marriage. The fisherman asked his friend the following question. Quote, "You are naked and have neither buying nor selling among you. Of what then is your wife's dowry? Do you give them jewels and precious stones?" End of quote. The merman answered, quote, "Jewels with us are but stones without value. But upon him who is minded to marry, they impose a dowry of a certain number of fish of various kinds, that he must catch 1,000 or 2,000, more or less, according to the agreement between himself and the bride's father. As soon as he brings the required amount, the families of the bride and the bridegroom assemble and eat the marriage banquet." End of quote. Abdullah marveled at this, and the merman carried him to another city and thence to another and another, till he had shown him fourscore cities, and he saw the people of each city to be different from those of every other. Then said to the merman, quote, "O my brother, are there yet other cities in the sea?" End of quote. The merman answered, quote, "And what have you seen of the cities of the sea and its wonders? By the virtue of the noble prophet, the benign, the compassionate, were I to show you 1,000 cities a day for 1,000 years, and in each city 1,000 marvels, I should not have shown you 1 carat of the 24 carat of the cities of the sea and its wonders. I have but shown you our own province and country, nothing more." End of quote. The fisherman said, quote, "O my brother, since this is the case, what I have seen suffices me, for I am sick of eating fish. And these fourscore days I have been in your company, you have fed me morning and night upon nothing but raw fish, neither broiled nor boiled. End of quote. It turned out that the merman didn't even know what is broiled or boiled because it is out of the question for them to bring fire in the sea. After the fisherman expressed that he no longer wished to see more cities and would rather go to the merman's city, the merman told him that they had passed his own city long time ago, which is very close to the land from which they came. So they decided to return to it. The fisherman looked and saw a city small by comparison with those he had seen. Then he entered with his companion to a cave, which the merman said that it was his house. After he entered the merman's house, something very funny happened. Facing the merman's daughter, who was described to have a face like the round of the moon and long hair, heavy buttocks, languishing black eyes, and slender waist, but she was naked and had a tail. When she saw the fisherman, she said to her father, quote, "Oh, my father, what is this lactail you have brought with you?" End of quote. The merman answered, quote, "Oh, my daughter, this is my friend of the land, from whom I used to bring you the fruits of the earth. Come here and salute him." End of quote. So she came forward and saluted the fisherman with eloquent tongue and fluent speech. And her father told her to offer something for the guest, whereupon she brought him two great fishes, each the bigness of a lamb, and the merman told him to eat. So he ate in his own despite for stress of hunger, because he was tired of eating fish and they had nothing else. Then the merman's wife came in, and with her two children, each having in his hand a young fish, which he munched as a human would munch a cucumber. However, when she saw the fisherman with her husband, she said, quote, "What is this lactail?" End of quote. And she and her sons and daughter came up to him and fell to examine his body and saying, quote, "Yeah, by Allah, he is tailless." End of quote. And they laughed at him. So he said to the Mormon, quote, "Oh, my brother, have you brought me hither to make me a laughing stock for your wife and children?" End of quote. The merman answered, quote, "Pardon, O my brother, those who have no tails are rare among us, and whenever one such is found, the Sultan takes him to make him sport, and he abides a marvel among us, and all who see him laugh at him. But, O my brother, excuse these young children and this woman, for they lack understanding." End of quote. Then he cried out to his family to stop their rude behavior, and they did at once. Meanwhile, some other mermen came to the cave sent by the king of the sea, who heard about a funny lactail creature in his kingdom. The fisherman, along with his friend, was taken there. When the king saw him, he laughed at him and said, quote, "Welcome to the lactail." End of quote. And all who were about the king fell to laughing at him, saying, quote, "Yeah, by Allah, he is tailless." End of quote. So after the king had his enough share of laughing at him, he let him go. But of course, not before bringing him the guest meal. Thus they brought him, you guess it right, they brought him fish of various kinds and colors, and he ate in obedience to the king's commandment. Before he left, the king told him what he wants from him as a gift, and he asked for jewels, which was given to him. After which, the merman brought him back to his cave, and pulling out a purse, said to him, quote, "Take this gift and lay it on the tomb of the Prophet, whom God bless and preserve." End of quote. And the fisherman took it, not knowing what was therein. Then the merman went forth with him to bring him back to the land. And along the way, he heard singing and merrymaking, and saw a table spread with fish and folk eating and singing and holding high festival. So he said to his friend, quote, what is causing these people to celebrate so? Is there a wedding happening among them? End of quote. The merman Abdullah of the sea answered, quote, no, it is only one of them is dead. End of quote. The fisherman asked, quote, do you then, when one dies among you, rejoice for him and sing and feast? End of quote. The merman replied, quote, yes, and you folk of the land, what do you do? End of quote. The fisherman Abdullah of the land answered, quote, when one dies among us, we weep and mourn for him, and the women slap their faces and rend the bosom of their garments in token of mourning for the dead. End of quote. The merman stared at him with wide eyes and said to him, give me the deposit. So he gave it to him. Then he set himself ashore and said to him, quote, henceforward our love and our friendship are at end, and you shall no more see me, nor I you. End of quote. The fisherman asked him, quote, why are you saying this? End of quote. And the other said, are you not, O folk of the land, a deposit of God? End of quote. Yes, answered Abdullah of the land. The merman asked, quote, why then is it grievous to you that God should take back his deposit, and wherefore you weep over it? How can I trust you with the gift for the Prophet, peace be upon him, when you rejoice over the birth of a child, yet when God takes that soul back, you grieve and mourn? If it is hard for you to give up a gift from God, how can you easily give up a gift for the Prophet? Because of this, we don't value your companionship. End of quote. With that, he returned and disappeared into the sea. Thus the fisherman wore his clothes and taking the jewels, went up to the king, who received him with open arms and rejoiced at his return, saying, quote, how are you, O my son-in-law, and what is the cause of your absence from me this long time? End of quote. So he told him his story about what he had seen of marvels in the sea, whereat the king wondered about all these stories. Moreover, he told him what the merman had said regarding the mourning for the dead. And the king replied, quote, indeed, you were at fault to tell him this. Nevertheless, the fisherman continued for some time to go down to the seashore and call upon the merman, but he answered him not, nor came to him. So at last he gave up hope of him, and abode he and the king, his father-in-law, and their families in the happiest of case and the practice of righteousness, till there came to them the destroyer of delights and the sunderer of companies, and they died all. Now, I just want to provide a brief comment about the story. While I was thinking about the mystical aspect of this tale, I found a relevant article by a scholar who tackled the issue. This scholar, Amira Al-Zain, said, quote, the tale as a whole illustrates the difference between exoteric Islam, the land, characterized by simplicity and clarity, and Sufi Islam, distinctive for its depth and its mystery, the sea. End of quote. She also said regarding the two settings of the tale, quote, it is as if the spirit of place imbues each group of people with different quests and a different perception of the divine. End of the quote. Many elements of the story align with Sufi concepts, such as the emphasis on spiritual transformation, detachment from the worldly concerns, and the pursuit of deeper unseen truths. For example, Abdullah of the Land's voyage to the underwater kingdom represent the Sufi quest for the divine knowledge, as well as the unveiling of hidden reality. In this sense, Abdullah of the Sea behaved as a guide to his friend Abdullah of the Land when he took him to the deeper world. So, mystically speaking, the two figures represent the Murid and Murshid. According to teaching of many mystics, those who take the risk of plunking down the inner aspect of life will discover pearls of wisdom. Another Sufi concept employed in the story is the number 40, which represent the span of a Sufi's khalwa. As I mentioned earlier, the fisherman endured hardship that followed the same pattern for 40 days before he met the merman. And this reminded me of a saying by Maulana, but I wasn't able to find it, in which he said something like the following. When you feel very desperate and too tired to continue, never stop, never give up, because it is in these very moments that your fate will be changed, or something like this. And this is exactly what happened to the fisherman who was very desperate and thought about tearing up the net and consequently quit his job. As Amira Al Zain also noticed, quote, the fisherman suffers for 40 days before his misery is over and before he encounters the merman who will change his life forever. These 40 days are days of trial, starvation, and despair. End of quote. She also talked about the importance of number 40 in Islam because the Prophet Muhammad received revelation at the age of 40. Moreover, the covenant between the two Abdullahs is rich in Sufi implications. For instance, it mirrors the covenant between the Murid, disciple, and the Murshid, spiritual guide. Moreover, the merman told the fisherman to come every day, in particular before sunrise. This time is considered profoundly blessed and spiritually significant, as it is believed to be a time when the divine presence is closest to the seeker. Additionally, the very incident of the fisherman being hunted by the merman has a Sufi aspect, as in the turn of events, we see that the fisherman himself is actually hunted by the merman. Such an occurrence can also be found in Sufi literature. For example, many Sufi stories feature a theme where someone initially comes to mock or challenges a Sufi figure only to be transformed by their wisdom and faith. Another theme is the idea of entering the mystical world, where people begin to act suspiciously toward the individual, and at the same time, it becomes difficult for them to convince others that their suspicions are unfounded. We see this in the story when the jeweler found the precious pearls with the fisherman and accused him of theft, instructing his people to beat him. The story clearly tells us that the fisherman caught was silent and spoke not a word, nor answered any of them. End of quote. It was only in front of the king, whose name is also Abdullah, that the fisherman spoke about what had happened. Actually, even before he spoke in front of the king, he had already revealed his secret to the other Abdullah. I mean the Abdullah the baker. The point is that the mystical knowledge can only be shared with a person who has already experienced the true act of ubudiyya, that's to say, servitude. Another relevant issue can be seen in the baker's reaction. Upon hearing the accusations against the fisherman, he shut down his shop and hid at home, feigning sickness. This reminds us of some of Al-Hallaj friends and disciples who, after being accused by the state, separated themselves from him out of fear of the political consequences. The idea of the power of a real mystic's prayer is also mentioned in the tale. For example, when the large, dangerous, beastly fish attacked the two Abdullahs underwater, the merman taught the fisherman how to scream at it, causing it to die instantly. The fisherman commented as follows, quote, glorified be the perfection of God and his praise. I smote it not with sword nor knife. End of quote. Additionally, the idea of the non-existence of buying or selling among the people of the sea implies their disregard for material possessions in favor of spiritual ones. Their lack of clothing could, metaphorically speaking, implies that they don't hide behind material things. That is to say, they appear as they really are. Moreover, the merman told the fisherman, quote, were I to show you 1,000 cities a day for 1,000 years, and in each city 1,000 marvels, I should not have shown you even one carat of the four and 20 carat of the cities of the sea and its wonders. End of quote. This refers to the Sufi idea of the endless joy and varied experiences of the mystical journey. Likewise, the idea of eating one type of food reminds us of the Sufi practice of teaching oneself to be content with the simplicity, which is often called zuhud, asceticism. Thus, no wonder that the fisherman grew very tired of eating fish. An interesting analogy between the two worlds can be seen in the moment when the people of the sea laughed at the fisherman because he had no tail, which in turn remind us of how earlier when the fisherman first met the merman, the fisherman had planned to mock the merman in front of others to get money. In short, this could illustrate how strange the people of the Zahir appear to the people of Batin and vice versa. In the conclusion of her relevant study, Amira Al-Zain said, quote, many scholars of the Arabian Nights seem to think that this tale was written and rewritten in Mamluk Egypt, most probably in the 12th to 13th century Common Era, which corresponds with the zenith of Sufism in that country and elsewhere in the medieval Muslim empire. One might assume that the scribe, or rather scribes, who worked on it were somehow imbued with Sufi ideas. Sufism is mirrored in the discussions about death and about visiting the tomb of the Prophet. End of quote. So, with this, our journey is complete. Finally, I want to say that I dedicate this simple presentation to anyone who has lost a dear one. No matter how strong your faith or mind or resilience may be, it is hard not to feel sadness for such a painful misfortune. I mean, the idea is that only people who have reached the core of faith are able to accept, to totally accept death and not to express any kind of sadness in front of it. So I hope that remembering the story of Abdullah of the Sea will offer you all some consolation. Thank you for listening.